Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to PN Global News. I'm your boy, Rodney Wood, CEO of Playbook Investors Network. And I'm not going to say my partner in crime because I learned that last week, but my partner in business, former NBA player, 6'10", Antonio Davis.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. And just to be clear, I'm your partner, whether we going to do a crime or not. I just rather not do a crime, especially we have attorneys on the phone. We can't do that, bro. We gotta keep it legit tonight.
Hey
All right,
man, listen. You know we'll keep it legit because like having attorneys with us tonight, we knew we had to be buttoned up, eh?
man.
Can't mess around.
And they bad too, waiting for something to happen. What? You know what
No,
I'm
I
saying?
know. I know, but listen, I want to welcome all of you to PN Global News. The nature of this podcast tonight with the attorneys, we're blessed to have them here tonight to educate you on specific things we're going to talk about. But navigating business contracts, passing the torch, succession, and estate planning for business owners. Woo, that's a
That's a
lot.
that's a mouthful, man. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting to build your business, this podcast is your go-to resource for navigating the complex world of legal contracts and preparing your business for the future. So we're excited to be able to do that for our listeners and really, to have these brilliant minds on this particular episode, man, because it's something that we all need. We don't even know
Yeah,
we need it, and we need it.
yeah.
Right?
And we realize it's like every day we need attorneys in our lives to help us get to the levels we need to go to. It's like you need them, and they're here. So, introducing our guest, Andrea Hunter. For 18 years, Ms. Hunter brought character, connections, and deep understanding of law, establishing her career and empowering the next generation of lawyers. Andrea gained valuable experience through internships with a Virginia. Was that a Virginia judiciary? Was it Virginia?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think I remember that part, but but for a Virginia judiciary member and the Georgia Office Attorney General and Government Services, returning to Texas by way of Georgia. She is focused on practicing criminal law in Tarrant County today. Ms. Hunter is a trial attorney representing representing the best interests of clients in matters involving I can't even read this litigation, personal injury defense, and first party insurance claims. I know it's about insurance claims too as well. So, Ms. Hunter, welcome to PN Global News.
Thank you.
Man, I needed her a while back. I was just in transportation. I gotta we gotta talk. I got a big federal case right now. You don't even know
Hey,
what
hey,
I'm talking
hey,
about.
you gotta talk to her though.
You know what
Offline.
I'm saying?
So you
But
go ahead and
it's
you got Miss Bone. Let's go.
it's all good. Uh, the Miss Attorney and Antoinette Bone, the law offices of Antoinette Bone is a boutique estate planning firm for married high-income in professionals and business owners seeking to secure their family structure. They understand the complexities and concerns that arise when it comes to guiding and protecting your family's financial legacy and help you engage in a thoughtful process. Their legal concierge service is tailored to meet your unique needs, ensuring a smooth process as they navigate estate planning, probate, guardianship, and asset protection matters together. Miss Bone, welcome to our show.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for
But
having
hey, y'all got clap,
Ooh,
man. Don't be
ooh,
like,
ooh.
hey, we doing all this.
Hey
me.
man, we going back way back. I went way back with that one. All right.
I heard that. I did hear it though. But no, listen, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to have you, Miss Hunter and Miss Bone, to the show tonight to really talk about businesses, and we're gonna just kind of dive into it. We got an hour show, and we want to make sure we get as much information out to our listening and viewing audience that we can possibly get out, and obviously they can follow up with both of you. But when it comes to the businesses, though, Miss Hunter, a lot of businesses don't understand what the needs are and why you really need an attorney to help them actually navigate through those waters because there's so many, hidden things that we don't know about. There's so many, unaddressed, type of contracts we're not really doing it the right way, and it comes back on us. So kind of want to put that in your lap a little bit and hear your expertise on what you think about why the importance of an attorney, especially today when it comes to business.
Thank you. I think the first thing that I thought about when we were preparing for this was, I know that Antoinette is going to talk about some succession planning, things like that, but I think effective succession planning actually starts at the foundation of the business. And it shouldn't be something that you only think about when you're later in your career or about to turn a company over to someone else. And I think the primary way you prepare a business for succession in the future, or to make sure your business is around to pass it on to someone else, is to make sure you have the founding principles in order, from business formation, selecting if it's an LLC, if it's a sole proprietorship, a partnership, getting some guidance on what's the best business structure based on the type of business you're going to run, and then getting some assistance from counsel on all those initial contracts, whether it's operator agreements, vendor contracts, leases, non-compete employment agreements. The primary thing that I do in litigation is basically, obviously, respond to things that people can't agree on. Whether it's a contract, whether it's someone hired an insurance company to represent them and they feel like they failed to do their job, they're all disputes. But on the business side, the disputes start oftentimes by not having clarity about what the duties and obligations are of both parties, what's going to happen if those duties are breached, when people are supposed to do what. And so I think if those things are clarified as the business is being founded or when it's newer, that can help prevent a lot of unnecessary litigation later.
And that's in the contracting side, though, primarily when, small entrepreneurial business or mid-cap businesses have contracts, i.e. with the Cokes, the Pepsis, the Microsofts, the Dells, what have you, right? And the understanding of not what's in the actual agreement of what we're supposed to do for that particular corporation. Is that primarily where a lot of things go wrong at that you see?
Yes, in terms of not understanding, but also in our society, when we're signing up for websites and services on a daily basis, most of us don't read anything. We just click and sign and say yes and move on. And that's fine.
Did you just say we don't read? What?
Yeah. When someone signs up to have a Target.com account to order groceries, they're not reading the terms of service on the Target website to figure out what they're agreeing to. And so we've gotten so accustomed to just glossing over things and signing, but you can't do that when it comes to your business. If that's your livelihood, if that's something that's going to sustain your family. The primary thing I learned in law school about drafting contracts is that it has to be very clear. And I'm not a fan of traditional or archaic language. Wherefore this, if you can't understand it, you need to start over. And I think that going through contracts with a fine tooth comb, provision by provision, section by section, and making sure you understand exactly what each section is explaining needs to happen, whether it's start and end dates, whether it's payments, whether it's if someone breaches, if you have a delivery company and they're supposed to deliver goods on the 1st of every month, when is it considered a breach? If they haven't delivered it by the 5th, or if they haven't delivered it by the 10th? If they can't deliver it on time, what are their remedies? Do they have an option to contract with someone else? You have to think through all of those scenarios to put those items in the contract so that people are not guessing and coming up with things on the fly about how to respond to things that happen. And that's really what attorneys are trained to do, is just think strategically and prepare you for things that you might not even anticipate.
Wow.
It's crazy that you say that. When I jumped into transportation, there was all these, I mean, they were 20, 30-page documents. And even if I sat down to read them, I didn't know what they were, right? So it was important to find an attorney that not to just make sure you're okay, but to make sure you understand what's in this language, because then that's how you have to run and structure your business, correct?
Correct.
Right. So, but I want to take one step back. You said formation of your business, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever the case may be. What are some of the things that should be considered when you're trying to make that decision? I think I just did a of the LLC because in the beginning it was the easiest and fastest way to get going. So I just did that.
Or somebody just told you, hey man, go get your LLC. Because you can go online now and every TikTok and every Instagram is like, just get your LLC.
Get your LLC. Yeah.
Right.
Put your name in the LLC. Put your
Yeah.
home. Put everything in the LLC.
Right.
Like,
And the problem is most people don't even understand what that means, other than they know the limited liability portion of LLC, but they have not a clue what types of basic operating agreements and procedures they need to have in place to protect that business structure. You know, in the legal world, we have something called piercing the corporate veil. You can set up an LLC, but if you get sued and the other party can bring proof that you commingle your personal funds with your business funds, you know, you using business materials for personal use or family and all that, they're going to say, this is just a veil. This person is trying to make it seem as if the entity is separate than the person to protect their personal assets. And so I think when you're choosing, one, you're thinking about tax considerations, which I cannot speak to because I'm not a tax lawyer, but tax implications, how many people are involved in the LLC, the governance that you desire for the business or the nonprofit. I think that's where, when you sit down with someone and really explain what your vision is for the business, that can help them kind of go through a flow chart and figure out what's the best fit for you and your business that's going to provide you the protection that you need and the freedom to govern it and run it the way you need to.
Can you do me a quick one? So sole proprietorship and LLC, what's the difference there? If I'm a single member LLC and a sole proprietor, is that the same?
Well, and I'll let Antoinette weigh into, she has a different understanding, but a sole proprietorship does not provide you with the same protections as an LLC. That's basically saying that I'm an individual running a business and this is my company, as opposed to this is a corporation. I have the opportunity in the future to add board members, add board of directors. It gives you a lot more flexibility, I think, for growth in the future, unless you know for sure that your business is always going to be a single member business.
Got it.
Yeah, so I think an easy way to sort of think about an LLC or any type of formalized corporate structure versus a sole proprietorship is to think of, as a sole proprietor, you're walking around naked.
What?
As an entity, whether that be a C Corp, an LLC, you got some clothes on.
Okay.
Those are protecting you from the elements. They're protecting you from people seeing all your business. But with a sole proprietorship, you're out there flapping in the wind.
Wow. That's a way to put it.
I was going to say something, Rodney, but I'm not going to say it. I was really...
Look here. I already know where your mind went, son.
Listen. No, seriously, though. And that's important, too. And it's worth repeating. Like, hey, when you go to start your business, make sure that you're taking into consideration a lot of different things before you just start forming a business because it's easy or because it's quick or because it's whatever. Like make sure you really take some time to think about that, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good one. I appreciate that. I admit I didn't do none of that, but I mean, I'm here. It's going to work out.
You put some clothes on, didn't you, bro?
Eventually, yeah. You know what I mean? You can't run around like that for too long. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
One thing that Andrea mentioned was about the piercing of the corporate veil. And I think when people are forming these entities because they have this business that they want to do, they think all they need to do is file with the Secretary of State, and that's the end of it. Mm-hmm. And that's just the beginning. There are other things that you have to do to actually protect yourself and protect this business structure that you've set up. So some of the things that she mentioned, like not commingling your personal and your business assets. You know, if it looks like your entity is just your personal bank, even though you may have an entity set up that says it's an LLC, you are risking not getting the protections of what an LLC or any type of corporate entity can provide you if you don't actually run your business like a business.
No,
so Antoinette, you mean that so I got my LLC and I got my business account, but I don't have no more money, so I'm gonna use this business account. I'm going to Walmart, give me some groceries. I'm co-mingling funds, right?
Yeah, you are.
There you go.
You
I
are big
mean,
time.
the IRS may be like, okay, one time we might forgive you, but if you make that a pattern of behavior, you know, the time and effort you spent setting up this business can end up being all for naught.
You know, I had a real, really true testimonial way back, when we first started the business. And the one thing in our business, you know, you do wine and dine a lot of clients, right? Because you're traveling, you know, if AD's coming from Oakland to Dallas, I'm going from Dallas to Oakland, we're going down to Vegas, we meeting, you know, investors, we meeting corporations, we wine and dine them, you know, that kind of stuff. And it, actually, when it came to the tax situation, they try to ding you because it's all your Schedule C, right? And if that Schedule C is not buttoned up properly, then they're gonna ding you for, you know, they're gonna hit you up for $39,000, you know, tax bill that you gotta pay because you wine and dine all these people, you travel, hotel lodging, you know, per diem, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't keep it properly, even though you're using that business card, it's still a challenge.
Yeah,
It
have a good
definitely-
CPA. Don't try to do your taxes. Don't turbo tax people.
Hey,
I ain't do no TurboTax, girl.
We learned that. Yeah, we learned that. Before we move too far,
H&R Block.
Andrea, you said something important, an operation agreement. Can you just expound on that a little bit and tell us what that really means? So if you're starting a business, forming an LLC or what type of entity it's going to be, and then the next thing would be an operating agreement. What is that?
And this is something Antoinette and I talked about the other day, is that even single member LLCs need to have an operating agreement. You need to have a document that governs how you run your business, how you maybe even procure clients, how you handle issues with staff, what the goals of the business are. When people, and I know later going to get to succession. If you think about someone owning a business, if there's no document in place that governs how it's supposed to be run or how things are supposed to be taken care of, and I lost my lights, it's motion activity. If there's nothing to leave behind to tell your niece, nephew, son, daughter, whatever, this is how this business is run. A lot of times people assume that people have knowledge about how to run their business just by proximity. Oh, well, they were around me for 20 years. They know how I do. No, they don't. And
Right.
so if you have a document that governs, this is how this business is run, this is how this business decides to take bids or engage in contracts, you need to have all of that spelled out. And to Antoinette's point earlier, that also helps in terms of, it's a protection really for you. Because if you are ever sued and someone's claiming that you and your entity are one and the same, you can say, no, we have business procedures. This is an example of what they are, and this is how we're following them to make sure we're doing things above board.
Wow, that does make all sense. You know, I tell you, Ms. Hunter, like, and we might well go ahead and kind of, you know, kind of ease into the succession plan part, right? Because the one thing that I've seen, you know, working with the major corporations and, you know, working with companies that class, you know, for business that's, you know, 500 million above, right? I didn't know how important it was until I seen a company and a person expired, you know, way before time, but didn't have a succession plan. And the one thing we used to talk about a lot back in the day, when we was going back and forth to Houston doing the show, we should talk about succession plan. And a lot of us and our kids don't want our businesses, right? And we don't create that succession plan. And then I remember one time going to Chicago to, you know, to interview a business. And the reason that we get ready to take his contract from him, because he made airplane parts and stuff, but he didn't have a succession plan. He was really, really sick. And they wanted that company to stay in the game with Boeing Airlines, basically, right? But his son didn't really want the business. So, like, what do you do in a situation where most of our kids don't want our businesses, and we want them to be our successors, but they're not. So now we got to find somebody, we got to groom somebody to be our success. I mean, that's a real tough one, and it's always been a tough one. One, not understanding what a succession plan really is, and two, if our kids don't want the business, who we're gonna have a successor of our businesses, right? So it's powerful, but sorry.
Okay, so I guess I'll start sort of trying to answer that question or address that. So I guess before I go into any type of real discussion about succession planning, I want to first talk sort of give an idea about what estate planning is.
Okay.
So, estate planning is a part of your succession planning. And it is a proactive approach to protecting your business and your personal assets, ensuring that your legacy aligns with what your wishes are. Now, in terms of succession planning, again, it plays into estate planning, but it in and of itself is an entirely separate process. So when we are talking about what's going to happen to your business, you're either going to leave it because you decide to leave it, because you die, or because you sell it. Now, optimally, people want to sell their business, especially if they're in a situation where they know their kids don't want it. Then they need to prepare it to be sold. And what a lot of people don't understand is that you can't wait until you want to get out of the business in a year to try to get it ready for sale. That just it's not going to work. It is just an utterly unfeasible plan. Real exit planning, and that's the term that you'll hear in terms in relation to succession planning. It's how you're going to exit your business. Right. Again, whether that be by death, by like transition, or because you decide to sell it. It's a process that's probably going to take 3 to 5 years. If you have not set up your business properly to begin with, you got to go back to the beginning and do those kinds of things. Let's say you did work with an attorney, which you should when you're setting up your entity.
We agree. We totally agree.
Not just because of some of the legal documents that need to be drafted, but because attorneys know things about what you need to be thinking about that you probably just don't know, because most people don't know what they don't know. And so for the succession planning part, 3 to 5 years in advance is when you need to start thinking about, how am I going to exit this business? So let's just say you want to sell it because your kids don't want it. You want to leave a legacy for your children, and your business is typically going to be your largest asset. It's how you've been supporting your family, and it's how you're going to have money in retirement, and how you're going to be able to leave that financial legacy to future generations of your family. So you need a team. It's not just one person that you need to be working with. If you don't have your business set up, aside from, whether it's an LLC or any other kind of entity formed, I'm talking about what kinds of policies and procedures do you have in place? Andrea was talking about, you think people know how to run your business just because they've been around you. But typically that's not necessarily the case, because, things because things are written down. If you don't have written policies and procedures in place, you're not creating value in your business to be sold, because that's what people are buying.
Yeah.
They're buying these policies and procedures that you set up to make your business run efficiently and to produce a profit for you, because they're trying to buy an asset that's going to produce a profit for them. And getting things set up, and that to do that may mean that you have to look at hiring someone that can replace you in the business to continue to run it. And let's say you want to stay somewhat active in the business for a period of time, so that maybe the business continues to pay you some sort of income stream. I mean, all of these kinds of things you have to be thinking about. What does exit look like for you?
Right. But typically, like if you sell a business or it's acquired or what have you, typically the investing group will keep you on for a year or two, because you really know how the business really runs, right? And how it's operated. And you pretty much got to train, the operator who's coming behind you to run this business, though. Isn't that pretty much safe in saying That's how it pretty much happens most times.
I don't know about most times. I know that there are situations where that can happen, where you're
Yeah.
kept on in the business for a period of time. But ultimately, yeah, you should. A lot of people don't necessarily want to do that. They just want to be out. They want to get their money and they want to go. So, if that's you, that's fine. Just know what it is that you want and what you're going to need to do in terms of getting your business to a place where it has the value that you think it has. Because a lot, and what I hear from a lot of people that do, that are CPAs, that do business valuations, the business owner has an idea in their head about what their business is worth.
Yep.
And from a business valuation aspect, perspective, from thinking about selling your business to a third party, that value is not typically what the owner thinks it is.
Yeah, it never is. I mean, we've been in a whole lot of business meetings and evaluations. It's never what the owner think his company or her company is really worth. It's never the same. Never the same.
And so you have to go through the process of getting your business valued so that you really have a realistic idea of what you're going to be able to sell your business for. You may find that during that process that, oh, I need to do a lot more work to get my business to the point where I can reasonably expect to get what it is that I need out of a sale, to fund the rest of my life, whatever that looks like. If that means just fund retirement, or if that means fund my next venture, whatever it is, you need to know what that number is, because otherwise you're making a wild guess and you are setting yourself up for some potential serious disappointment.
Wow.
When you talked about the difference of a succession plan and estate planning, can you make the variation and see it and tell us how one kind of transitions to the other?
Yes. So you have this asset that is either going to continue to provide you income in the form of an income stream, or it's going to provide you a chunk of money that you have to either invest or into some other venture, or you're going to live off of it for a while and just live off of the investment income from just say like the markets. So when we're talking about estate planning, most people think about that as just death planning, like what's going to happen when I die. And that is not the case. Estate planning is as much about disability planning as it is about death planning. And as a business owner, this is something that's even more important for you, because let's say you are that single member LLC or that sole proprietor. If you get sick for even a short period of time, I mean, you're the primary rainmaker, you're the primary doer, you're the primary everything.
Yeah.
What happens to your business? You could lose a significant amount of your business because you are not able to bring in the business, perform the work necessary to keep the business running. That may be because of a short-term illness. That may be because of a long-term illness. And a long-term illness could kill your business. So as a business owner, you need to be thinking about, how can I sustain my business through any period of incapacity? And that's where, you can look at having some type of key man insurance for that. So you can at least maybe bring in someone to replace you and have the funds to pay them during your period of incapacity.
Yeah, that's real interesting, because we went through that back in the day with key person insurance policies. They changed it from key man to key person insurance policies, right? But you also have to have that protection, even when you're looking for money now, in your business. Key person insurance policy is really important to know that there's somebody who's your lead person to handle this business if you are, sick or you expire early or what have you. But, come on, listen, I'm going to keep a little bit, a little humor in this, but, Black folks ain't trying to do no wills, and we ain't trying to We ain't trying to. I don't want to sit there and do this will right now. Then I die 2 weeks later. Hell no.
Unfortunately, what you say is true.
I'm gonna be the first to say
true.
this is us. Hey, I know who I am, and this is us. And I don't want to do. If I do this will, am I ready to die? What do you think, eh?
Hey, listen, man, we're gonna go one day anyway, right? So
I ain't ready.
at the end of the day, it's better off to do it and have something in place than you sitting up there dead and nothing's in place, right?
Yeah, and we see.
My question is, at the very minimum, Antoinette, what should we have? At the very minimum, we should have what? A will, a trust, what should we have?
Yes.
Yeah.
So whether you need a will or a trust, just speaking in general about any person, not just a business owner,
Right.
whether you need a will or a trust is a whole lot of things have to be known about your situation to make that decision.
Okay.
Whatever vehicle you end up using for the transfer of your wealth from yourself to whoever it is that you want to receive it, one, you need to have an attorney to help you do that. Because wills they're more complex than they may appear. And yeah, you can go on LegalZoom, you can go on the internet and you can cobble some stuff together, but do you really know what it is you're putting together and how all of that is going to actually work? And do you understand what all of those terms mean? Because there are terms that we use in estate planning that have a very specific meaning. And if you don't understand, let's say per stirpes, if you don't understand what that means, or per capita, when it comes to the distribution of your property, you may end up giving property to people that you had absolutely no intent to give it to. No. So as far as what you should have at a minimum, look, I focus on comprehensive estate planning. So for me, the minimum is you need everything. You need a will or a trust to transfer your assets. You need a durable power of attorney for finances to have someone be able to manage your finances in the event that you can't do that for yourself. You need a medical power of attorney to naming somebody to make medical decisions for you in the event that you can't do that for yourself. You need a HIPAA release so someone can have access to your protected health information so that they can make medical decisions for you, and the doctors will talk to them. In Texas,
we definitely need a cheat sheet for real.
Hey man, listen, or we need to be in the PIN community so that we're constantly hearing this great information. Correct?
Absolutely, that's right. You're so right. So they need to join us at pincommunity.org. Come on in and join. I mean, this is so important, though. Honestly, we try to make some light of it, but it's a serious problem. It's a serious problem we have in our communities when it comes to businesses not knowing if you need, and why you need that attorney, and it's evident here that we all need the attorney, right? We need you ladies. We need you guys and as attorneys to guide us through some of the things we just don't know. And a lot of times we think as a business, we really know a lot, and we don't, right? So when it comes to that succession and key person insurance policies, your business plan, having the right, things to make sure your business continues to go if something does happen to you. And Lord knows we've already experienced this when we just came through COVID, right? When we came through COVID, how many businesses really had to pivot? How many people really expired? And even the banks and the private equity and the VCs and the family offices didn't even know where their money was neither, because they didn't know that person had expired and there was no succession plan, right?
Yeah.
There was no estate plan.
Antoinette, we didn't mean to cut you off. Was there something you wanted to
finish?
Oh,
yeah, there's other things I'm going to tell y'all. So I think I left off at medical power of attorney, so in HIPAA release.
Right.
In Texas, I was about to say, we have what's called a pre-need declaration of guardian, because sometimes, you don't just go out and get into a car accident and die. You could develop Alzheimer's, dementia, and so there's a slow decline of your mental faculties over time. And as a business owner, that is something that you really need to think about, especially if there's a history of those kinds of illnesses in your family. But you need to designate someone who can serve as your guardian. You don't want to leave that up to the court. You don't want people, assuming that role that you would not want in that role. And so in Texas, we have two different kinds of guardians, which I won't really focus on for this conversation, but go talk to an attorney about that. You should you should have a directive to physicians, which in other states is called a living will. And that's where you're telling healthcare professionals that, hey, if I am either terminal or have an incurable condition, then I either do or don't want you to take extraordinary measures to prolong my life. Naming someone to be in control of making decisions related to what is happening to your body after you die. You may think that, oh, why would I need that? Well, people start fighting about what mama's wearing in the casket.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. What kind of casket there is going to be bought? What what the service is going to be like? If there's going to be a service, who's going to be invited? All of those things are fodder for disagreement. So name one person who's going to be in charge, and that way you diffuse and eliminate a lot of potential for conflict. And then having a document that says how you want your body to be dealt with in terms of burial. So do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Where do you want to be buried? If you were cremated, where do you want your ashes kept? Scattered, or who do you want to keep your ashes? I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be thought about in terms of estate planning. And as a business owner with children, you need to think about, well, if something happens to me, who is going to take care of my children? In the short term, meaning if I get into a car accident and I end up in the hospital for 2 weeks, 3 months, who's going to be taking care of my kids? And upon my death, who's going to be taking care of my kids? And particularly upon your death, who's going to be in charge of managing any money that you leave your children? So when it comes to the transfer of your financial assets, most business owners are probably going to need to do trust-based planning. And, trusts are a great planning tool because they provide so much flexibility in what you're able to do in terms of telling people how you want the money to be distributed and to whom you want it to be distributed and under what conditions you want the money to be distributed to those people. It just provides so much more flexibility than a will does. And, one of the most important reasons I hear people wanting to do trust-based planning these days, especially in Texas, where we have a fairly streamlined probate process, is they don't want their business in the streets. Probate is a public process. Your will is going to get filed in the probate records, and anybody that wants to go look and see what it says can go look and see what it says. They'll find out who your beneficiaries are. Ultimately, they'll be able to find out what assets you had because an inventory has to be filed. There's a way around that, but it's usually not used that often, but it can be. But
man, people are that nosy for real?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I mean, they're trying to, if you think about it, man, if somebody got some money and they passed away, what better way to get on the internet and see if any of that is public so you can see who has it, like what's going on. I mean, it's awful. And so right now we're talking about kind of estate planning, like not necessarily after the fact, but what happens with, like I said, this big lump sum of money or this revenue kind of flowing out. But I want to get back to you, Andrea. I think, my biggest thing during the whole time I had my business was, like you said, I had an operating agreement, but I think that's an ongoing thing. And I wasn't kind of updating and make sure those things happen. And then as you are doing business with big business, right, they have these other contracts that you have And one of them, I think I was just so excited. It was Home Depot, and I was so excited about the contract. Like I literally signed it and then sent it to my attorney to say, "Hey, what did I just sign?" I know it was awful. It was.
I'm
awful.
not good at hiding my face. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, but I want you to speak on that. Like what? Like obviously, I should have sent it to her before I signed it, but I think for entrepreneurs, they just get so excited about doing things. Can you talk about? I know the ramifications of kind of what happened, but can you give off the top of your head one or two things that can potentially happen that is really, really bad? And this is the reason why you go to an attorney before you just sign something?
Yes, a couple of examples. I worked with one business in the Penn community on their agreements between themselves and their customers. And initially, this business owner came to me with a contract that I think was found on LegalZoom or some sort of mass volume platform, and it was about 40 pages long. And I said, respectfully, who the heck is reading all that?
Who is that?
Okay, so if this was supposed to govern your relationship with these clients that you're onboarding, I don't want to read it, and you're paying me to read it. They're not going to read it, and so the primary thing that happens is the expectations are not going to be met. If they're not reading the contract, they don't understand what they're responsible for and when they're responsible to do it. It's not going to get done. Deadlines are going to get missed. And honestly, I've reviewed contracts for a few different businesses in Penn. In addition to just unmet expectations and deadlines, I think the other side of it is the litigation piece, because people are very litigious in the United States, as we know, and it doesn't take much for someone to say, "Hey, you were supposed to, have this shipment to my warehouse by this time, and you didn't do it. So we want to void this contract. You can sue us if you don't like it, even though we had a 1-year deal." And so it really can result in loss of business. And I really believe one strong lawsuit can shutter most small businesses. I don't think people understand the legal fees, the court cost, expert fees, and all that go into trying a civil case. I mean, I think that there are some insurance carriers, for example, that pay about $20,000 or $25,000 just to begin civil litigation with the law firm. And so if you're talking about a gas station or a small restaurant or a food truck or something, and someone gets sick, or let's just say, God forbid, someone dies from eating something off their food truck, well, they're going to want maybe $1 million. And so what are you going to do to protect yourself on the front end? Maybe was it the sausage factory that you ordered your products from that really had the issue and they sold you tainted meat? You really have to think about all those aspects to protect yourself. Everything I do is about trying to avoid the litigation factor, because most people honestly can't afford to go through a lawsuit.
Hey, on the contract, I'm sorry, go ahead, AD. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying it goes back to that whole naked thing that Antoinette was talking about. If you don't have, the proper legal documents in place, you're kind of running around here super exposed, correct?
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, another piece of the planning part is the insurance, as she mentioned. A lot of businesses are underinsured for the type of business that they're running. And so, people will try to sneak in with some sort of personal policy when you're contracting for Amazon or some other delivery service. You're a delivery service provider. And, I've seen cases where a driver falls asleep, or they have internal cameras and they're on their phone and they hit someone hard enough that their car flips and their car catches on fire and people are airlifted. I mean, you really have to protect yourself in every step of the process. Do you have employees or do you have contractors? What documents do you have in place to specify these are the employee expectations? If you go outside of these expectations, then you have diverted from what is the norm and what we expect you to do, which means if you do something criminal like drinking and getting in one of our delivery trucks, we're not responsible for that. So I think that it's protecting yourself at every stage of the business operation process.
Man,
so I had this is probably totally off the wall question though, Ms. Hunter. Really, AD? Okay. So
Andrea's
look,
not surprised. She's not surprised,
right,
though. She
but
know what you're
right, she
about to
doesn't.
say.
Right,
Come
okay.
on, come on.
So you got 1099 employees, right? And this is not a trick question, but you got 1099 employees. You got a ton of them, and something happens. Who's at fault? Because they getting paid from the company, right? But they're my 1099 employees. And they did X, right? What happens with that, right? Like you said, somebody fell asleep and done something, but they're a 1099 employee.
What happens, I think, first of all, depends on the way you set your business up and what they're signing up for. What comes to mind is like a Uber or Lyft. We all know that those people that are driving around are not employees of Uber and Lyft. However, if you get in an Uber or Lyft and they flip the card, you need multiple surgeries, your lawyer is going to be going after Uber and Lyft. I think you look at what type of access the 1099 employee had to conduct business on your behalf, what types of potential risk that you allowed them to take under the guise or name of your business, and how are they compensated? Are they receiving salaries? Are they receiving benefits? To make sure they're not really employees, and you're just trying to pretend on paper that they're not really. Oh, I'm not responsible for them. I've seen that a lot with furniture delivery companies. If you go to Macy's and buy a couch and they say we can have it to you in 2 days, it's not going to be a Macy's employee that delivers it to you. They're going to slap a logo on their white truck and pick that stuff and drop it off at your house. So I think it's a lot about how they're compensated, what their agreement says, because they'll have a contractor agreement that spells out what their duties and responsibilities are.
Right.
But most of the time, it's particularly if you're talking about something catastrophic or with bodily injury, it doesn't matter if they're 1099. If you gave them your blessing to operate on your behalf, you're going to be held liable.
Yeah, but I thought it was something, and maybe something in the clauses, in the 1099 clauses. I know they got to take care of their own taxes, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? But you really can't dictate to that 1099 employee what to do, though, right? And we could probably have that conversation some other time,
It's different, I think.
Yeah.
I did the Amazon thing that you were talking about, and we had to have employees, so it wasn't a 1099 thing. But my other company, I had 1099 employees, and I just had to be careful about telling them, work hours, I couldn't dictate all of that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Is that one of the major keys is you can't be dictating and telling them every single thing to do, because if that, they're an employee, correct? And not a
right.
And to that end, it kind of, to me, parallels what we were talking about in terms of having an LLC and distinguishing the entity from yourself as an individual. The more formalized you have the business structure, and the more formalized you have with the relationship between you and the person working for you, the more oversight you have and control you have over them, the more it's going to appear to a court or to another lawyer like that person is an employee of yours and not just a contractor.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And right now there's two different aspects. We're talking about estate planning, which is something I don't want to say totally different because they're kind of tied in. But I think in a business situation, you definitely have to make sure that, you have all I remember, so I had to have an agreement. I was running a 3PL, basically a brokerage. And every time I contracted somebody to go and do something for me, I had to have a document that had a contract in between us. And I used to get so mad at my contractors who were kind of getting this thing done, because every single time it wasn't signed, right? I'm like, how are we doing? I go back and I'm looking at these documents. I say, we've been working with this trucking company for a month and the documents still aren't signed. What are we doing? Why would we do that? Right.
What you're doing is exposing yourself to a lot of liability. That's what you're doing. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey man, you do know we got attorneys on the PN Global News today.
I'm just saying that I'm trying to point out why all of this stuff is so important. because
right.
I personally went through all of this stuff, and I'm sitting here just mad at myself. I'm mad at you now. Why you didn't introduce it to me a long time ago? Hot now, bro. Knowing how important this stuff was, you didn't introduce him to your boy, so I wouldn't be sitting over here feeling crazy. That's why I keep bringing up what
I'll
I
try.
do.
All I'm gonna say is I've been trying for a long time.
I
And it's
know you
finally
have.
coming to fruition.
I agree. I agree. I
I've been
agree.
trying to tell all of us, hey, we gotta get this right. They coming after you, especially if you play the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, you're an entertainer, and they think you got money, or they saw publicly you got XYZ dollars. They coming, right? So I mean, but it goes for the business. I mean, for the small business, mid cap business, athlete entertainers, anybody who has a business, or just individually. This is a lot of things that we just need to learn from Miss Hunter, Miss Hunter, and Miss Bone, because when you uneducated, you really don't know what you don't know. You really don't know, right? And we do know that getting your business stuff right on the front end, Andrew, working with attorneys like yourself and getting our stuff right, Antoinette, with you, like, just not understand the whole succession, that whole estate planning, the wills, the trust, the irrevocable, all that stuff is like Greek to most people, right? Until they sit down with you and they really go through, the process and understand like why you need this, why it's important. Go ahead, A. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. But we're running out of time, and we never have enough time. So I apologize.
No,
thank you so much for all this valuable information.
Oh, wait.
Go
Before
ahead.
we run out of time, though, there's actually one other thing that I want to
No, you go ahead.
The succession planning and exit planning is buy-sell agreements.
Oh, yeah.
And the importance of having one when you have a partner.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people enter into a business with their friend on just a handshake, assuming that everything is going to all just work out. Whatever disputes will happen, I'll just be able to work it out because y'all been friends, buddies for forever. And that mostly doesn't happen.
No.
You need to have, along with being properly structured and set up and having the right documents in place. This is one of those documents that you want to have in place as well. The buy-sell agreement it provides a structured approach to ownership transitions. Mm-hmm. Because while you may like your spouse, your partner may not like your spouse and doesn't want to be in business with your spouse.
Yeah.
So your buy-sell agreement will address what is going to how your interest in the business is going to be dealt with. So it's typically going to be like some type of life insurance policy or a policy where it's going to pay out so that the person being bought out or the person doing the buying out has money to buy the other person out. Because a lot of times, if you don't have any type of agreement, there's going to be disputes, but one partner may not have the funds to buy the other partner's interest out. And nobody wants to be in that situation, being in partnership with someone that they don't want to be in business with.
Yeah, you can do that through insurance though, right, Antoinette? We can take out a policy on each other, and
yes,
there's different things that you can do.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Only thing that I was going to say is I found for me as a small business, that legal price tag was hefty. Like I found it because it was hefty, like overlooking some things and saying, okay, I'll come back to it because it's a price tag, right? Like I'm sitting here now, like it doesn't matter. Whatever I'm going to spend is worth way more than what could end up happening to me. So I'm not advocating that people don't take it seriously and spend the money that they have to spend up front to make sure that they're covered on the back end. But with that being said, what are some of the things that small businesses can't do if they can't necessarily, afford the full services of an Andrea Hunter or an Antoinette Bone? Like Do you have some, like, where should I start if I'm creating pencils and I'm selling them like hotcakes, and I'm not making a ton of money, right? But I'm making enough to where, okay, there's a checklist. Okay, I got my marketing, I got my social media stuff, I got my website, blah, blah, blah. Okay, when it comes to legal, what is the first thing that I should do, Andrea, in my business to at least start? Like, I got $1,000 or I got a little bit of money. What should I do first when I think about my business?
Bring it to me. Bring me your $1,000. No, okay, but honestly,
Hey, I like honesty. We love it.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
Right.
I mean, we talked about business formation. In Texas, the Secretary of State charges like $300 to set up an LLC. There are a lot of attorneys that have business startup kind of packages where they'll consult with you to determine the correct business structure. They'll file your paperwork. They'll get your EIN from the IRS, and then they'll maybe even work on your operating agreement or your board of directors work with you guys on that. But the term I want people to remember is unbundled legal services. That's something that's gotten really huge over the past 10 or 15 years, where people are being allowed to kind of piecemeal representation. Maybe your business is not at a place where you can have a business attorney on retainer for $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month, but you can say, hey, I want to work with you in an ongoing manner, but to start, may I have a retainer for you to help me with my business formation and my initial contracts? And you can at least with me, you can prepay for a certain amount of hours. You know what? I got $1,500. That's, 5-6 hours of your time. How much can I accomplish in that time? But on the flip side, on Antoinette's side, I think about, and I don't know what she charges, it's not my business, but for example, someone might say, oh, an estate planning lawyer, that's going to be $10,000. Well, how much is your peace of mind worth if you're breathing your last breath and you know that everything is going to be left with your family? If you have a $500,000, $1 million house, you have a business that's valued at $2 or $3 million, why is it not 10,000 or 15 or a fraction of that, probably maybe even a 1% of that, to make sure that all of your business is going to be tied up properly and it's going to be handled and closed out in the manner that you desire?
No, that's facts. That's
right. Because I will tell you, look,
yeah. I saw Antoinette close her eyes up there like, girl, preach. Go ahead, girl. Right. Go on, girl, preach.
So yeah, look, I'm definitely not the least expensive estate planning attorney out there, but I can guarantee you what you will get with me is someone that will work with you to explain the documents that you're signing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't let clients sign documents they don't understand. And so my process has built into it a time for us to review the documents together and you ask your questions. And, that is where the real, relationship is, where the real magic lies in ensuring that what you're paying for is going to work the way that you want it to. And it actually says what you want it to say. So look, there's a broad range of prices when it comes to estate planning, but not all estate plans are created equal in terms of the service that you actually receive from the attorney, because a lot of attorneys just draft documents, they send it to you to sign, and that's what you pay for. And so yes, that's at a lower price point, but I provide a concierge service, so it's not just the provision of documents. It is about the relationship that I cultivate with my clients during that process, because I focus on, not just transferring your assets, but your values to the next generations. A lot of minorities these days are looking to transfer generational wealth. Yeah. Well, generational wealth isn't just about having a will and having a trust. It is about so much more than that. Telling your future generations who you are, because they may never know you and how they got the money that they're spending.
Exactly.
And so we're helping people transfer their life stories, the values that they grew up with, that forged who they are as individuals, that led them to create this wealth that they're now leaving to their great grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so estate planning is not just about the documents.
You're right. We got like about 20 seconds. We don't even want to leave you ladies.
I
But
need like 6 of them. I was just going to say, to your point, Antonio, my father was a serial entrepreneur. He probably owned 15 different businesses when he was working. And I think that's one of the reasons why I joined Penn, is to allow access to people that don't have the funding to have someone on retainer for $50,000 or $75,000 a year, to kind of remove one of those barriers so that people can have their business operated in a way that's going to protect it for them to be able to leave to someone else.
No, that's
hey,
great.
ladies, I'm telling y'all, thank y'all so much for joining us at PN Global News. Join us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. East Coast Time, and 6 p.m. Big fella Antonio Davis time in the California area. But most important, thank our sponsors, Foot Snap and Burdock Naturals soap, one of the best products I've ever used. So I want to thank Foot Snaps and Burdock Naturals for being our sponsor. I want to thank my partner, Antonio Davis, for being here again tonight. I want to thank you, Antoinette, Andrea. Thank you all so much. Thank our listening audience, our viewing audience. Continue to really get together and understand what you need to scale your business. Join us at PennCommunity.org. We're here to help you. We're here to educate you. We're here to also provide you the service of these ladies here, who also can help you take your business to another level. So continue to be blessed. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you here next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. Take care. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, AD.